America always seems to be unstable in movies. The reason is because they have too many experiments that are dangerous to humans. And this time, it's the story of a boy who disappeared because of one of the experiments of American scientists. The movie opens with a scene of a doctor running out of the laboratory with fear on his face. The electric light in the hallway also flashed continuously. He thought he could safely escape by running to the elevator, but at this moment, some force from the ceiling caused the ugly doctor to burst into flames. Outside the laboratory, not far away, a group of children were playing a role-playing game. The four boys were convincing themselves that a bloodthirsty creature was about to appear. However, the role-play was too noisy, so the mother asked the group to disperse. She told them that this game had lasted 10 hours, so she couldn't stand it any longer. Will returned home still angry about the game, and he revealed that his character was killed due to a bit of bad luck. On the way home, although Dustin raced his bike, he also lost. Today was truly a dark day for the boy. The boy passed by the laboratory area and was suddenly frightened by a strange noise, causing him to fall to the side of the road. Not knowing what to fear, he abandoned his bicycle and ran home to ask for help from his mother and brother. But right now, the whole family was away. Not having time to ask for help over the phone, he had to run away to the warehouse. It seemed that some mysterious creature was gradually moving toward Will. The boy expertly loaded the shotgun and nervously took aim. Unfortunately, this mysterious creature did not appear in the usual way, but appeared from above the ceiling, causing Will to only watch helplessly. The next morning, dawn broke over the town peacefully like any other day. But at this point, Will's mother, Joyce, discovered that the boy had not come home all night. She blamed Jonathan for not taking care of him. Meanwhile, her son was also busy with part-time jobs and cooking. Worried about her son, Joyce called each friend's house to ask, but there was no news. Mike, along with Lucas and Dustin, went to school and also seemed worried because of the strange disappearance of his best friend. Nancy, Mike's older sister, was passionately in love with a popular guy named Steve. She said she had to go to school, but she quickly made an appointment to take private lessons with Steve at 8 p.m. At this time, Police Officer Hopper also arrived at the station with the most sincere attitude possible. He was not at all concerned when Joyce reported her son missing. The police chief also thought that the boy was just busy playing and hiding at a relative's house. He also asked Joyce to contact her ex-husband to ask if Will was there or not. He thought like that because during his 4 years as police chief in this town, there was only one noisy incident caused by wild animals attacking people. But Hopper did not know that from now on, he and his teammates would have new and difficult challenges in protecting the town's security. Because at this time, the nearby laboratory had brought in many agents with full state-of-the-art protective equipment. This team of agents followed the traces left on the wall and found a creature like a giant leprechaun breathing loudly. They also searched for a little girl living in the laboratory, not knowing that she had taken advantage of the chaos to escape. Pressure from the mother prompted local police to begin an investigation. They looked for clues from the boy's close friends. Joyce and Jonathan also split up to look for the boy, but to no avail. At this time, the girl who escaped from the laboratory was given a cake by the restaurant owner. At the same time, he also asked about her identity. He noticed that the girl had a tattoo of the number 11 on her hand and asked about this special mark. But she didn't want to talk, so she just answered that her name was 11. Faced with such a strange girl, the restaurant owner had to call the police. While talking, he didn't notice that 11 used the power of her mind to stop the fan from spinning. At the park, Chief Hopper found Will's bicycle. Besides that, he didn't see any other clues. Well, it's better than nothing. Hopper just brought the bike back to prove to the mother that he was looking for the boy. Joyce was furious when she called her ex-husband to report their son missing, but the husband's new girlfriend didn't want to talk. Just when she was annoyed, the police chief brought Will's bicycle over and questioned whether the boy had come home since last night. Because the dog kept looking straight into the warehouse and making a mess, Hopper decided to go in there to find clues. He discovered more scary traces, so he decided to launch a serious search in the forest area. Annoyed that the whole family did not care about Will's disappearance, Mike contacted Lucas and decided to ignore his mother's detention order to sneak out to find friends. When he left the house, the boy saw Nancy's boyfriend climbing the wall into his house but didn't pay any attention. At the other restaurant, the owner was killed by a woman who claims to be a local authority. The incident was seen by 11, so she quickly ran away from here. At this time, Mrs. Joyce also received a strange phone call with no voice but only gasps. She was sure it was Will, so she immediately called the police. On the other side, 11 ran away to the edge of the forest and met 3 boys looking for her. Her friend, Barbara, sadly sat by the pool but did not know that her injured finger was making her the monster's next target. Just as the monster used a mysterious method to take Barbara, Jonathan was so busy adjusting the camera that he didn't see this scene. He was only surprised by the disappearance of Barbara. While Barbara struggled with a monster that looked like a human but was not human, Nancy and Steve were getting intimate. It's true that it's only a step away, but some people reach the top and others are at the bottom. Poor Barbara was taken by the monster. Even though she fought back fiercely and shouted all the way, it still didn't work. After the intense scene, she needed to clear her throat. Nancy said goodbye to the sleeping boy and snuck home, but was still caught by her mother. She came home late and even argued loudly with her mother. This girl really should be disciplined. The next morning at Will's house, the mother was still frantically trying to talk to the light bulb. Meanwhile, Jonathan did not easily accept his mother's belief that his missing brother was trying to communicate through the flickering light of the light bulb. He explained that it was just a natural phenomenon when the power supply line had a problem and his mother needed to wake up. On the other side, Will's group of friends also quickly planned to find him, in the hope that 11 superpowers would help them overcome all obstacles. But whatever they did, Mike and his friends are just elementary school students who still have to go to school. So, the boy told 11 to stay home until school was over, and then they would all go look for Will together. She was so bored at home that she decided to explore Mike's house on her own. Lying on the couch, relaxing, happily playing with the phone and turning on the TV, it was revealed that 11 was turned into an experiment by her withdrawn father named Brenner. The girl suffered a lot of torment while in his energy research center. On this side, with a strong belief that her son is trying to communicate through the light, Joyce bought a lot of decorative lights in town and brought them home to turn the house into a miniature light festival center. Meanwhile, the police chief went to the energy research laboratory to find out, but was stopped. With his excellent persuasion talent, Hopper finally entered Brenner's research area. Even though the staff showed him the camera, Hopper still suspected that this center was lying and that the disappearance of the boy was related to them. Hopper and his teammates left without knowing that underground in the research center, Brenner was sending people into the strange mucus wall area. At school, Mike's sister met the boy who must have betrayed her last night and seemed very happy. It wasn't until she entered class that she realized her best friend had disappeared. After exploring Mike's house, 11 continued to go into Nancy's room to search and quickly realized that Barbara had disappeared like Will. At this time, Nancy at school was also asking about her friend, but was sarcastically teased by Steve's friends about her performance during the party last night. Not as heartless as her older sister, Mike and her friends Dustin and Lucas took time off to prepare their weapons to find their missing friend. But Mike was bullied and injured by a fat boy. In the photo developing room, Jonathan was enjoying the intimate moments he captured yesterday, but was seen by Steve's people. As for Mike's talkative mother, wanting to show concern for the neighbors, she took her young daughter to Joyce's house to confide in her. While the two mothers were busy talking, a flashing light led baby Holly to Will's room. The innocent girl looked around the room with excitement and was surprised to discover something terrifying inside the wall. Luckily, Joyce and Mike's mother were able to stop her and run to save the girl from the clutches of the monster. Knowing that Holly had seen something too strange inside the wall, Joyce immediately sent mother and daughter home. After a whole morning without hearing any news from Barbara, Nancy was even more panicked when she learned that her friend hadn't come home since last night. And Steve's friends gathered around Jonathan to steal the intimate photos he took, and they tore them to pieces. What's more, they even broke his camera. Jonathan then left happily? This seems contradictory. Likely left dejected. Nancy noticed that in the pile of torn photos, there were some photos accidentally taken of her best friend, so she quickly picked up the pieces. Among Steve's bad friends, Nancy began to feel lost, so she decided to search for Barbara on her own. On this side, right after school, Mike and his two friends took 11 to look for Will. They saw that Mike had an injury on his face, so 11 asked questions and learned that the boy was bullied. Nancy returned to the house in the woods to look for Barbara and discovered her car was still parked there. Wandering into the garden, Nancy was suddenly scared by a dark shadow, so she ran back home in panic. At this point, she was sure that her friend had encountered something extremely scary. Will's mother's use of flashing light bulbs throughout the house has begun to take effect. Joyce took a bunch of flashing lights and established a code that 1 blink meant yes and 2 blinks meant no. Through the light signal, Will let his mother know he was still alive but not safe. But this way of communication did not satisfy the mother's longing, so Joyce decided to write an entire alphabet. Each letter would correspond to a light bulb, so Will could say everything that needed. After using his badge and authority, Hopper was able to enter the library and find out some information related to Brenner. But the partner who accompanied him thought it was all nonsense, because who could believe such a thing, that people were being studied to use their minds to control objects? It was like the saying, you shouldn't fear strong enemies, just fear teammates who are as dumb as a bag of hammers. No matter how much he explained, his partner still thought that Hopper was thinking too much about Brenner. Just when questions were being raised about Will's disappearance and involvement with Brenner's laboratory, Hopper received news that a body had been found in a quarry near the forest border. Mike's team, thanks to Eleven's tracking abilities, went to Will's house. The girl thought that Will was still hiding at his house, which caused a conflict within the group. Lucas was upset that 11 was not serious about finding the missing person. While arguing, a police car passing by caught the group's attention. The four children immediately ran after the police car because they believed the police had new information about Will. At this time, in Will's house, the boy's mother was using the alphabet and flashing lights to communicate with her child. Will said the boy was right in this house, but he also advised his mother to run away immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, the wall behind the wallpaper began to have fluctuations. A strange creature with a human shape but no face was clawing at the wall to escape. This scene made the poor mother extremely scared, and she rushed out of the house. At the lake in the quarry, the police brought up a body that matched Will's identity. Mike's group also realized this, so they were extremely disappointed. Mike loudly criticized 11 because he thought she had deceived the group by saying Will was still alive. At this time, Jonathan drove back to the alley and saw his mother running out of the house in a panic. The police also quickly went to the house to explore the walls that Joyce said had been attacked by a strange creature, but there were no traces. Hopper announced that the police had found Will's body and the cause of death was drowning. But Joyce firmly did not believe this story, because Will had previously told her through the lights that her son was still alive. Of course, the information that Joyce provided was considered a product of imagination only. Even though he was angry because he thought 11 lied about Will being alive, Mike still took her home. He refused to believe that she was lying, in the same way that an ex-lover can't rekindle a relationship. 11 used her superpower to detect a signal from Will. This brought Mike back to his senses. Spending a tormented night in pain, Joyce was awakened by Jonathan to go identify Will's body. Because the mother had been unstable and worried, no matter what she said, everyone thought it was a product of her imagination. Even so, Joyce still firmly refused to accept that it was her son's body. Tired of his mother's behavior, Jonathan declared that no matter what she wanted to do, he would still hold the ceremony for his brother alone. Meanwhile, Barbara was recognized as missing after the party with Steve's group, making Nancy very confused. Steve asked Nancy to lie during the interrogation because telling the truth would affect him. This made her feel hurt and extremely disappointed. While everyone focused on Will's ceremony, Mike and 11's group searched for a way to contact the boy. Lucas was very rational because he himself saw the police pull Will's body out of the water, so he did not believe in this communication attempt. But they were still determined, so the group decided to dress up 11 to take her to school to use a good radio to find Will. Very quickly, the police came to the school for questioning Nancy about her chaotic night with Steve. Nancy told Hopper's two subordinates that she saw a mysterious creature in Steve's yard, but the police brushed it off. They assumed that because Nancy had an intimate relationship with Steve, she was jealous and left. They also confirmed that it was very possible that the girl had returned home. This time, in the basement of the laboratory, Brenner decided to send a man in a protective suit to explore the world inside the mysterious wall. And 11, dressed up as a little beauty, went to school with the others, just as the whole school was preparing to hold a memorial service for Will. With the group's earnest pleading, the teacher in charge decided to lend them the key to the radio room if they attended the memorial service. The group entered the hall and were shocked to hear that Troy was making fun of Will's departure. The interrogation caused Nancy to reveal that she had spent the night with Steve. This made her mother extremely angry. When you reach this age, you leave home to live with your lost father. Mother and daughter argued for a while, then Nancy got angry and blamed her mother for only worrying about who she slept with and not caring about the fact that she was heartbroken over her friend who had just disappeared. Nancy angrily returned to her room and began to piece together the photo that Jonathan took the night Barbara disappeared. She was shocked to realize the appearance of a strange creature in the photo. At the laboratory, the man in the suit reported that inside the mysterious pulsating wall was a dark world that was difficult to identify. Suddenly he panicked and said there was a monster inside, and then fell silent. Brenner ordered the man to be pulled out, but they only saw the rope shaking violently and heard the roar of the monster. Beast. Finally, the rope was pulled out, but only a piece of the protective suit remained, and the man was gone. During Will's memorial service, 11 discovered that Troy was the one who injured Mike. The girl then used her superpower to control Troy's actions, causing him to push himself down. Just as Troy rushed up to attack Mike, 11 made this bully wet his pants again, and he became the laughingstock of the whole school. Taking advantage of the chaos, Mike's group quickly sneaked to the radio room to use the radio to search for Will's signal. On this side, Nancy also went to see Jonathan to ask him to enlarge the photo because she believed there were many suspicious signs. She also told him about the faceless creature she saw behind Steve's house. Indeed, like mother, like son. He said he didn't believe it at first, but what the girl said made Jonathan believe her, and he went with her to the photo studio. With suspicions about the death of Will, Hopper went to meet the person who found the boy's body at the lake. He discovered that this person was only asked to report that Will's body had been found, but had not actually seen the body. It was impossible to find out who was behind it, but Hopper began to be suspicious about the corpse that was said to be the boy's. At that time, both Will's mother and friends were busy trying to contact the boy. From inside the wall, Will called out to his mother. His group of friends also caught this signal, but could not contact Will and could only hear his voice. The mother was so frantic that she tore up the wall, revealing a mysterious, sticky scene inside. Will panicked and said he was in a place that looked like his home, but was dark, empty, and very cold. At this point, the wall suddenly closed, and the school radio also caught fire. Because of using her superpowers too much, 11 was exhausted. At the same time, Joyce frantically broke the wall, hoping to open the door to that mysterious world to save her son. But the connection was disconnected, and before her eyes there was only a ruined house and despair. Jonathan and Nancy successfully enlarged the portrait of the mysterious creature that appeared on the night of Barbara's disappearance. Its identity completely matched what Joyce had described, so Jonathan truly believed the story his mother told him. On this side, Police Chief Hopper could no longer keep calm, so he took the direct route to break into the morgue to examine the body. Surprisingly, when Hopper himself examined the corpse, he discovered that this body was actually just a stuffed dummy. This result made Hopper extremely angry, so he decided to sneak into Brenner's laboratory to find out the truth. Of course, breaking into such a modern laboratory is not easy, so Hopper was quickly discovered. Taking advantage of the time when the guard came out to fiddle with the walkie-talkie, Hopper used his police skills to knock him down and then immediately took the gun and pointed it straight at the young guard to threaten him. The police chief even snatched the guard's keycard so he could go deeper. At this time, news about the missing boy quickly spread. Will's father suddenly returned home and began to comfort Joyce. He convinced his ex-wife that she was imagining things. Meanwhile, Hopper had entered the room where 11 was locked before and realized that this was a children's room. Little girl 11, after trying to contact Will with the radio at school, was exhausted and was taken to Mike's room to rest. From the information that Will gave, the group suspected that he was in an upside-down world in another dimension. Dustin believed that humans could not enter the upside-down world, but maybe 11 could. After that, the girl quickly refused. After bypassing the laboratory security guard several times, Hopper finally managed to reach the room with the sticky wall. Just as he was about to face the humanoid monster, he was suddenly grabbed from behind by a person wearing protective gear. When Jonathan returned home and saw his parents being close, he was unhappy. He frankly kicked this heartless father out of the house, but he couldn't outsmart him. Even though he wasn't happy, he had to accept letting him stay. Because they didn't know that Will's death was fake, everyone continued to hold a funeral for the boy. Under the coaxing of her ex-husband, Joyce also agreed to appear at her son's funeral. After being captured in the laboratory, Hopper wakes up in his house in a state of panic. The once cool police chief now looked as disheveled as a mess. He immediately ransacked the house and destroyed furniture to find eavesdropping devices. Sure enough, Hopper found a recorder as small as a copper coin mounted on a lamp. It's not just Hopper who's being wiretapped. Mike's house is also being monitored with a recording device. Through the conversation of Mike's group of young people, Brenner had determined that 11 was definitely hiding at the boy's house. The discovery of the humanoid monster made Jonathan and Nancy much closer. Right after the funeral, the two analyzed the situation together and decided to proactively search for the monster. To do this, one must have money and weapons, so Jonathan broke into a luxury car that was attending his brother's funeral and stole a large pile of money and a gun. Brenner's men also quickly transformed into radio equipment repairmen to sneak into Mike's school. They wanted to find information from the radio that the group used to contact Will earlier. But the kids didn't know this. They were busy asking Mr. Clark about the upside-down world. The teacher told them that in theory, people could go to the upside-down world by opening a portal with a huge source of energy. As the police chief, Hopper was not allowed to hide in fear for too long. The coroner came to his house to inform him about more people missing in town. Hopper then realized that the case of Will's disappearance was of great concern to the government and Brenner's laboratory, and they certainly did not just place eavesdropping devices at his house. They asked 11 about the gate leading to the upside-down world, and she kept saying she didn't know. Dustin quickly discovered that he could change the direction of the compass with a magnet, so if they kept following the reversed compass's north direction, they would find the gate to the upside-down world. This discovery made 11 look very confused. It seemed like Will's father was really worried about his son and sincerely cared for his poor ex-wife. But Joyce discovered that he just wanted to take advantage of his son's death to make money. She kicked her brutal ex-husband out of the house and continued to pursue the idea that her son was still alive. At this time, Steve came to apologize to Nancy for lying to Nancy. However, because she had many secrets to discover with Jonathan, she refused her lover's invitation to go see a movie. So she quickly went to find Jonathan and discovered that he was quite good at using guns. Mike's group decided to follow the compass to find a way to enter the gate, but the more they walked, the more desperate they became. At this time, 11 also showed many suspicious signs and said she did not want to go further. But Mike encouraged her to try to continue their journey. After a whole day of walking until the kids' shoes were torn, they discovered they were walking in circles. Lucas quickly pointed out that it was 11 who manipulated the compass so that it pointed in the wrong direction. When questioned, 11 had to admit and said she did not want the group to reach that gate because it was very dangerous. At the same time, Hopper came to find Will's mother and asked her to be quiet, then eagerly searched everywhere to remove the eavesdropping devices installed in the house. He also told Joyce that Will's death was fake and that the monster's existence was real. On this side, the group of young people started arguing. Lucas insisted on blaming 11, and Mike defended her. The argument was inconclusive, so Mike and Lucas got into a fistfight. Witnessing this scene, 11 immediately used her superpower to push Lucas, who hit a broken car and fainted. Lucas woke up angrily and left. 11 also disappeared, so the whole group broke up. That night, Nancy and Jonathan were searching in the woods when they came across a deer that had been hit by a car and was dying. Nancy wanted to put it out of its misery with a bullet to avoid pain, but she couldn't do it. Just when the two were struggling over whether to shoot the deer, the monster appeared. It drained the deer right before the frightened and helpless eyes of both people. Near the deer's blood trail, Nancy found a small, damp, and dark opening. She immediately went in, only to witness the monster eating the poor deer. But Nancy didn't know that she had just been given a ticket to travel to the upside-down world, so she could only wait until an exhausted Jonathan came to the rescue. Having to hide from the monster while finding a way out in the dark made Nancy desperate. Luckily, Jonathan was already waiting on the other side of the gate and tried to pull her out of the upside-down world. After the epic adventure, Nancy and Jonathan were so scared they could have wet their pants, and they quickly returned to her room. At this moment, Steve, worried about his girlfriend, climbed in the window to visit. Except, my girlfriend just said she was busy taking care of her family, so she couldn't go to the movies with me. And now I see another guy thoughtfully putting a blanket over her on the same bed where she and I once had a good time. This made Steve speechless. Thanks to connecting information with Joyce, Hopper discovered that the children's room he saw in the laboratory was not a prison room. After the incident, the police chief determined that the room belonged to the girl who had been declared missing 12 years ago. The girl's mother sued Brenner and the government for taking her child, but was unsuccessful. Hopper also believed that this girl was the person mentioned in the fast food owner's murder. On this side, the trip to the upside-down world still scared Nancy. Luckily, Jonathan wisely stayed overnight to look after her. As a gentleman, Jonathan spread out his mattress and lay on the ground. But just a few minutes later, Nancy herself asked him to lie next to her in bed so she wouldn't be scared. Hey now, young men, don't think wrongly. Jonathan slept very well all night and didn't do anything wrong. As a result, Nancy nervously stayed up until morning because she was not used to lying next to such a blockhead. From the knowledge she gained after her trip to the upside-down world, Nancy discovered that the monster was actually a carnivore. It has the agility of a tiger, the strength of a bear, and the ability to smell blood as keenly as a shark. The two decided to use themselves as bait to lure the monster to appear. Not being able to find 11 and having a conflict with Lucas made Mike upset. Based on Dustin's suggestion, Mike decided to go to Lucas's house to apologize. But Lucas wanted Mike to remove 11 from the group before making peace. Once again, Mike and Lucas fought fiercely over the strange girl. It's true that brotherhood is only strong when everyone is on the same page. Still disagreeing, Lucas decided to separate from the group to work independently, while Mike and Dustin went together. At this time, 11 also woke up at the edge of the forest after a night of hiding. The girl went to a nearby grocery store and defiantly took the boxes of cakes she liked. When the store manager tried to stop her, 11 didn't care and used her superpowers to immobilize him and then coldly left. Meanwhile, Hopper and Joyce went looking for Terry Ives, the woman who sued Brenner and the government to get her daughter back, but she is now in a catatonic state. Her sister said Terry once participated in an experiment to expand her mental capacity without knowing she was pregnant. So the fetus and mother went through the experiments. Then Terry was suddenly told by the doctor that she had had a miscarriage. But Terry did not believe this and thought that she had safely given birth to a daughter with superpowers whom Brenner and the government took away for research. Of course, no one believed Terry because there was no proof she had given birth. All of her words were considered products of her imagination. The lawsuit came to a dead end with Brenner and the government winning, and Terry not long after losing consciousness. In town, Jonathan and Nancy quickly gathered a lot of weapons to prepare to fight the monster. Just when they were both happily waiting for their next adventure, Nancy found herself being mocked by Steve's friends. She quickly understood that her boyfriend had come to her house last night and seen a misleading scene, but she could not explain it clearly. After mocking Nancy, Steve insulted Jonathan, which made him so angry he lost his temper. Having had his lover stolen from him and being beaten at the same time, Steve couldn't let it slide. He rushed to fight Jonathan. All the pent-up anger made him unleash his strength, so he quickly pushed Jonathan to the ground and continuously punched his opponent. When the police arrived to restore order, they arrested Jonathan. Jonathan's performance was so dramatic that he was taken to the station and put in a cell. Dustin and Mike reached the edge of the forest when they saw Troy grab a knife and rush forward, wanting revenge for being controlled into wetting his pants the previous day. Faced with that dangerous situation, Dustin and Mike turned and ran to find help. Troy quickly caught Dustin and ordered Mike to jump into the lake or else he would give Dustin a free plastic surgery. Friends were in short supply. One was missing and the other was angry. With only Dustin left with him, Mike decided to sacrifice himself to save his friend. In front of the deep cliff, the boy did not hesitate and threatened to jump. But the surprising thing was that Mike did not fall into the water, but was held in midair as if by an invisible cushion, then slowly floated up and safely landed on the ground. Needless to say, everyone knows that only 11 could perform such a spectacular rescue. With very gentle movements, like a shake of her head, 11 knocked down a fat guy and broke Troy's arm. Then she coldly chased the bullies away. The end of the Beauty Saves the Hero scene was also the time when 11 used up her strength. Because she promised her friends not to lie, the girl honestly recounted how she was forced by her father to make contact with the monster in the upside-down world. When exposed to the monster, because she was so scared, 11 accidentally emitted a terrible burst of energy, causing the gap between the two worlds to tear, forming the sticky gate in the laboratory. Mike and Dustin learned what had happened, but did not blame 11 and took her home. At this time, Brenner's people also investigated the whereabouts of the 3 children, so he immediately set out to capture his test subject. Meanwhile, Lucas was still angry at Mike for prioritizing 11 over his best friend, so he went alone to Brenner's laboratory to investigate. The boy accidentally discovered that Brenner knew Mike was hiding 11, so he immediately informed the group by radio. Mike carried 11 on his bike and Dustin rode alone, pedaling to escape Brenner. But how could the two boys' pedaling power compete with the lab's powerful cars? Even though the kids took a shortcut, they were still surrounded. Faced with an emergency, 11 used her superpower to lift one of the cars up and then threw it back to block Brenner's way. Reuniting with Lucas at the junkyard, the kids made up with each other with sincere apologies. Receiving news that Jonathan had a fight with Steve and was arrested, Joyce immediately returned with Hopper to help her son. At first, the poor mother argued that her child was a good boy. Then she firmly ordered Hopper's subordinates to release her son. But when she saw with her own eyes the weapons Jonathan was keeping in the car, both she and the police chief were speechless. Because the government backed Brenner's laboratory, his people quickly came to the house. They informed Mike's parents that their son was hiding a very dangerous girl. They randomly searched around the house looking for evidence that 11 was there. Mike's mother confirmed that there was no way her 12-year-old son was hiding girls in the house. She angrily demanded to know the identity of the girl the government people were looking for, but got no answer. Brenner tapped into a mother's psychology by asking her where the boy might be hiding. Of course, this trick is effective on caring mothers. But Mike's mother did not know that her obedient son was currently discussing plans with his friends at the junkyard. The kids were quite smart, so they quickly hid their plans. Bicycles under a scrap car, and then got into an old car to avoid being detected by search parties from above. At the police station, Jonathan was facing charges of assaulting an officer and a teenager. To secure his freedom, Jonathan told Hopper the story of how he and Nancy encountered a monster in the upside-down world, and that the weapons were for fighting monsters, not for harming people. Before this matter could be resolved, Troy's family came to the police station and caused chaos. From the boy's story, Hopper found a clue about 11 and knew she was hiding with Mike. Having just been punched by his love rival until his face was swollen, hearing his friend's disparaging words about Nancy still made Steve mad. The boy quickly turned against his former friends and decided to break up with them to protect his girlfriend. Not knowing her boyfriend was worried about her, Nancy was still busy coordinating with Hopper, Jonathan, and his mother to find Mike. This clueless sister actually didn't know anything about her younger brother, so of course she couldn't help find the kid's hiding place. In contrast, Jonathan was very concerned about his younger brother, so he used a walkie-talkie to contact the children. Over the radio, Nancy once again failed to win the children's trust. Not until Sheriff Hopper showed up did Mike and the kids decide to answer. Even though they were still skeptical about whether Hopper was a good cop or a bad cop, when they saw him take down Brenner's men, the kids obediently followed him home. At home, the children told everyone Eleven could use her superpowers to contact people trapped in the upside-down world. But when it came to practice, she desperately apologized because she couldn't find Will's signal. While washing her face, Eleven remembered that she could project her mind into the upside-down world by using an isolation bath. Luckily, Dustin used his cunning to get the design for an isolation tank from Mr. Clark. To have enough supplies to make the tank, the group had to move to the school. After many preparation steps and challenges, the isolation tank was created. Eleven successfully projected her mind to the upside-down world and painfully discovered that Barb was dead. Under everyone's encouragement, Eleven found Will in an exhausted state. She encouraged the boy to hold on because people were coming to save him. At this point, Eleven was exhausted and was forced to return to the real world. Knowing Will's location and the gate leading to the upside-down world, Hopper and Joyce decided to go save the boy. Assigned to stay with the kids, Nancy was furious at the monster for killing her best friend. An eye for an eye, she coaxed Jonathan to continue their plan to trap and kill it. Jonathan's skills were not in question, so it's not difficult to understand why he broke into the police station to steal back the weapons that had been confiscated. Just as they arrived at the entrance to the gate, Hopper and Joyce were surrounded by Brenner's group. In the dark room, Brenner appeared and tried to persuade Joyce to show him how to contact Will in the upside-down world. But he was unceremoniously scolded by Joyce for faking her son's death and disregarding his life. In the other room, Police Chief Hopper was being tortured because he refused to cooperate with the government. To prove he was stubborn, the government agents threatened to falsify records to make him look like a paranoid addict. But Hopper offered a deal. He would give up Eleven on the condition that Brenner's laboratory allow him and Joyce to save Will. The negotiation between Hopper and Brenner ended with a deal. He and Joyce were released to save Will, but they were not allowed to reveal anything related to the laboratory. Wearing protective gear, Hopper and Joyce entered the upside-down world through the gate, and Brenner's group also set out to capture Eleven. Retrieving the weapons from the police station, Jonathan and Nancy made trap weapons and planned to attack the monster. The two decided to use their own blood to lure it. Before the deathmatch, Jonathan was about to express his feelings when Steve appeared and interrupted everything. The young boy aggressively rushed into the room where the trap was being set and was shocked to see that this place was like a battlefield. Realizing that Steve was genuinely worried about her, Nancy softened. Not wanting her boyfriend to get caught up in the upcoming dangerous fight, she held a gun and forced him to leave Jonathan's house. The heated scene between Steve and Nancy was reaching its climax when the monster also followed the smell of blood and arrived. Jonathan screamed to get the couple's attention so they could focus on dealing with the unwelcome guest who was gradually appearing. But the monster seemed hesitant and didn't follow the three people into the living room, instead suddenly disappearing. The first time he witnessed the monster from the upside-down world, Steve was very scared. Only now did he understand why Nancy kept trying to send him away. What level of danger was this? Life was important, so Steve immediately ran to the car to escape. The monster saw that the young man had left the house, so it was no longer hesitant and turned around to attack. Jonathan fired at it in time. Knocking Jonathan face down on the floor, the monster tried to envelop him with its giant mouth like a five-petaled flower full of teeth. Not letting this ugly creature succeed, Nancy immediately shot at it. The bullets didn't hurt the monster, but made it angry, and it turned around to attack Nancy. Just when the monster was about to grab the girl, Steve appeared and bravely attacked it. Being suddenly attacked caused the monster to become disoriented and stumble onto a trap soaked in gasoline on the floor. Jonathan also regained consciousness and quickly lit the monster on fire. The fire broke out, bringing with it a pitiful scream. After Jonathan sprayed the extinguisher, what remained on the trap were only sizzling pieces of flesh. It turned out that the monster had returned to the upside-down world to restore its power. The kids hiding at school found food to restore Eleven's energy. After many incidents, Mike also admitted his feelings for her. After a moment of hesitation, Mike rushed forward and kissed her. Mike and Eleven's act of sharing dog food, public affection, had not yet had time to excite the audience when Brenner's group arrived. Surrounded, Eleven had no choice but to use her ability to make the surrounding people's noses bleed. The soldiers fell, but the girl also ran out of energy and fainted. Without Eleven's protection, Mike and the kids were captured by Brenner's other soldiers. But no one expected that the scent of blood would be found by the monster from the upside-down world. In front of everyone's eyes, the monster broke through the wall and crawled out. No matter how many guns and bullets Brenner's army aimed at the monster, it was unharmed and screamed loudly in response. Since the monster was busy at the school, Hopper and Joyce could adventure through the upside-down world. They found Will in the dilapidated version of Joyce's house. The boy was being drained by a creature shaped like a giant leech. This scene reminded Hopper of his cancer-stricken daughter with the tubes on her body that haunted him for a long time. Not letting the pain happen again, Joyce and Hopper rushed in to tear the giant leech away and then fired the gun, determined not to let it have time to lay eggs. While the soldiers were busy dealing with the monster, Mike's group took 11 to a classroom to rest and recover. After making a promise about a future together, Mike considered 11 a member of the family. The sound of gunfire outside went silent. The whole group of kids looked at each other in confusion because they didn't know if the monster had been stopped or if the soldiers were no longer alive to shoot. Before the children could wonder any longer, the door was broken down by the monster. The kids had to use their slingshots to stop the raging creature. Just as the monster opened its flower-shaped mouth wide, hoping to suck in the 3 kids, it was suddenly pushed back and pinned to the blackboard. 11 coldly stood up. She had used her superpower to control the monster. Knowing that his girlfriend was running out of energy for the final battle, Mike rushed out to stop her and was immediately pushed back by the girl. In this moment, 11 turned both sad and gentle eyes toward Mike. The boy also shed tears and helplessly looked at his little girlfriend. After saying a tearful goodbye to Mike, 11 put all her energy into turning the monster to dust. She herself also disappeared amid Mike's desperate screams. Even though Hopper removed the giant leech from his body, Will still passed out from exhaustion. Not letting all efforts go to waste, the police chief was determined to save the boy. He calmly showed Joyce how to do chest compressions and CPR. But even though he pressed to the point of nearly breaking the boy's ribs, Will still lay motionless. But a miracle really happened. As the distraught mother cried, Will miraculously came back to life. After the battle, everyone returned home. Mike's parents came to pick him up, and Will was taken to the hospital for emergency care. The boy woke up to the joy of his mother and brother. Receiving news that their close friend Mike had recovered, the group excitedly talked about 11 and the recent terrifying battle. Witnessing the group of kids reunited after the tragedy, Nancy couldn't help but feel sad because her stubbornness had led to her friend's death. In the middle of the family's reunion celebration, Chief Hopper was taken away by a strange man. 1 month after the battle, life returned to the way it was before. The 4 boys continued to play role-playing games, only Mike still looked sadly at the bed where 11 had been lying. Nancy and her boyfriend maintained their close relationship, while Jonathan was lonely but was comforted by a new camera. Returning home, he happily recorded every moment with his family. The film ends in the cozy atmosphere of the Christmas party at Will's house. But the boy didn't let anyone know that while in the bathroom, he had accidentally wandered into the upside-down world for a moment. This is definitely a sign that the threat of the upside-down world to Will's family has not ended. Please stay tuned, and I will bring you further stories about this troubled town in Season 2. Goodbye, and see you next time, everyone.